4 different games, all with the same metrics. Let's talk about collecting for trading card games. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. I hope you're having yourself a great day. What a beauty it is to be able to be involved in this hobby of collectible trading card games. Hope you're enjoying it today. Let's hop into it and talk about a few things. We're gonna talk about the metrics of collectible card games. We're gonna talk about both the measurable metrics as well as the immeasurable metrics whenever it comes to talking about collectible card games. I was reading an article today. Let me pop up exactly what I wanted to say. I was reading an article today that was talking about collectibles in video games, and this one really stood out to me. The worst collectibles are definitely those that have no way of tracking which ones you have and which ones you don't. And that is what led me to creating the Flesh and Blood collection tracker and the Metazoo collection tracker. And I was typing in my collection the other day and I was thinking through, like, what is it that makes me want to collect a trading card? What are the things that make it, why do I pick this card over that card when it comes to filling out my collection first or second? And so I was wondering what are the measurables and immeasurables of collecting these trading card games, whether that be Pokemon or Magic the Gathering or Flesh and Blood or Metazoo or whatever it is for you. What are the metrics of which we go through? So I wanted to talk about some of those. First off, let's talk about the ones that are measurable, the things that have actual physical data behind them, the things that you can actually point to and track. Not the things that are feelings, but the things that are actual evidence and proof that give value to some of these things that we collect. First, I want to talk about the biggest one, and that is print run. Print run matters so much when it comes to talking about whether a card is collectible or not. This in Flesh and Blood is of course why we always said that Unlimited wasn't for the collectors, it was for the players, because they were going to print so much of it, they weren't going to print it forever, although I did say I wish it wasn't out of print, that they kept the right to reprint it for forever in 5 years down the road. Anyway, but the fact is that the print run is so much larger for an Unlimited set that it caused the first edition to have more value or be more collectible because the print run was capped at a certain number, which was intentional on the publisher's behalf. Whenever you're talking about print run, you also have to talk about reprint policy. And that's what gives a lot of value in Magic the Gathering for reserve list cards like this dual land and all the other dual lands and all the other reserve list cards, is the idea that it can't be reprinted means that you will not be able to add more numbers to that print run, which then makes it more collectible because the window to collect it has gone. The window to get the card is out the door. You can no longer, there's not going to be any more copies added in, which is a measurable tactic. So one of the ways that we see this play out, I think, in Flesh and Blood primarily, is the difference between cold foil commons and cold foil legendaries. If you really dig into the numbers, there are actually not that many more cold foil commons as there are cold foil legendaries. There are approximately 1,024 of the Snapdragon Scalers and approximately 860 some of the Feyendel Spring Tunic. Print run does matter. The tunic is much more rare. It is also within a set that has more the more cold foil commons than they do legendaries. So it's harder to get a legendary than it is a cold foil common, which adds more to the rarity. Now, if you compare like a Spring Tunic to one of the Monarch cards, we don't currently know the Monarch print run, but it's guessed and it's widely assumed, and it makes a ton of sense that the Monarch print run is much larger. So just because a legendary has the same pull rate doesn't make it the same value, because there are more legendaries. So print run definitely matters. Now, here's where this kind of diverges, is usability. Now, whenever we're talking about trading card games, you also have this use of this idea that cards are required to be used to be played in the game. This is the biggest value for why people invest in collectible card games over other things, because they have an actual use above just being played. And that kind of goes away differently for things like, you know, your PSA Charizards that are graded. This cannot be played with although it still has a lot of value and collectability because of all the other things that we'll talk about. But the usability for a card, I think this is where the dual lands really come in, because dual lands can be thrown, I put these in, I used to have them in my commander decks and things like that, because they have usability. It has a little bit of bling to it. You get to show off to your friends just a little bit, and it has usability and access. All right, now let's talk about iconacy. I don't even know if this is a word, but it's something that I'm going to use. For instance, the Fandel Spring Tunic. I really believe the Spring Tunic is one of the most iconic Flesh and Blood cards of all time. It is arguably, you can make arguments, this is where we start getting into the immeasurables, but that it is the most iconic card, so it has the most potential to increase in value. Just a thought, just a thing. This is, you know, the Charizard, right? The Charizard is that's probably one of the most iconic pieces of artwork in all trading card history, and that causes it to be more collectible because it's just Charizard. It's measurable, but it's also immeasurable because it's hard to pronounce exactly why it matters. It just matters because more eyeballs want this. More people want this because it's iconic. Same thing that goes with the Spring Tunic over something like the class-specific legendaries. That's why the Tunic has more value, because it is more iconic, and arguably because it has more usability, although not many people are going to be using cold foils. And here's the last measurable that I have, and you can leave comments in the comment section if you think there are things that I missed in this video, but the last one I have is IP and brand. And this is where I think things like Metazoo is really trying to accomplish and really is trying to move forward. What Metazoo cares about is building a brand. This is what Pokemon has done really well. This is why when Pokemon was out, there was video games and TV shows and all sorts of different things. Creating a brand is really important to creating collectibles because it makes the spread wider. It gives, you know, if you can rep a hoodie, a Pokemon hoodie, you have attention on that brand. You get to become one with that brand. I wear band t-shirts all the time. This one's actually not a band t-shirt. I wear band t-shirts all the time because I love identifying with that brand. And that's one of the things that if you have an IP, if you have something that people can get behind as a company, you know, not that all other card games don't do that, but these ones that are really focusing on that provide another avenue of collectability because they're branching wider than just the trading card space. They're doing things that are different, which allow them to space this gap to more people, adding more collectability to the card. So IP and brand, super important. Yeah, so let's talk about the immeasurable things, right? Those are all the things that you can measure with numbers and statistics and whatever. Let's talk about the things that are immeasurable. Number one is personal attachment. For me, cold foil commons are things that I absolutely love. I value this higher because it's a cold foil common, and I love cold foil commons. They have a personal attachment to my channel. This is why I do playmats. Playmats have a personal attachment to me in the channel. I have history behind them. I have a connection to those, and that's why I love those things. And you might have a personal attachment. Maybe it's a card that you pulled. Maybe you pulled a Savannah in your Magic the Gathering draft 25 years ago, right? And maybe that meant a lot to you, and you've had that card with you. You will never sell that card. That collectible has a immeasurable value to you that means something different that it doesn't mean to somebody else. So the personal attachment to something. Maybe it's for you, you grew up playing Charizard and you traded one away to a friend, and you know, they screwed you over and gave you like 6 non-foils and whatever. And for you always wanted to own something, and now you finally can. And so that personal collection part of the thing, that personal attachment. Another immeasurable is potential increase in value. This is why we've started to see some people move cards like Charizards, move cards like Magic the Gathering reserve list cards into games like Flesh and Blood and into games like Metazoo, because they see the value of a Charizard and they say, that's about as high as it's ever going to be. Yeah, maybe potentially it's a safer investment because of the history of the game, but the potential value is about at the cap, and it's going to take a lot to shift it. Whereas a game like Metazoo or a game like Flesh and Blood, a quick thing could shift the market and allow you to have some financial gains. This is where it gets a little bit more into the investment side and a little bit less into the collectability side. But I will say that there's a collectible element to that we'll get to, of FOMO, of not wanting to miss out on something that you know that you love and that you will love, and not wanting to miss out on the opportunity to buy it or get it now at this cost because you believe it's going to be that cost. And that's why you see a lot of these trades and transactions happening. Another thing that is an immeasurable is the art style and eye appeal. I've heard a lot of people who simply put, they don't like the Metazoo artwork, so it's not something that they want to do. I, for one, love the Metazoo artwork. It reminds me of Rick and Morty. It reminds me of cartoons. It brings me to a fun place. That doesn't mean I don't love the artwork of Flesh and Blood. I love the artwork of Flesh and Blood. I also like the artwork of Metazoo. And it allows me to like both of those things. And so for you, you might not like a specific artwork, and that might prevent you from collecting that thing. Here's the other avenue of collectibles is eye appeal. How does something look on a shelf? And all those other measurable things add to the eye appeal. But there becomes something that's just different. People like things that have good eye appeal and that look good on a shelf. And what looks good to you might look good, different to somebody else, and that changes the way that you view it and the way that other people might view it as well. So the art style and the eye appeal, I think this is some of the things that people talk about when they talk about the Eye of Ophidia over some of the other fables, is they feel like even just the gems, let's not single one out, but they feel like the gems in Flesh and Blood have better eye appeal or better collectible eye appeal on a shelf than the full art kind of small, beautiful landscapes that look great blown up. You can't see it, but I have the library picture here. I will show it to you. It looks great blown up on a wall, but doesn't look great on a card that's just, small in your office or whatever if it's not blown up bigger than that. The eye appeal matters to collectors. And lastly, but not least, one that I hate, but I also see the value to, is FOMO, fear of missing out. And it is certainly an immeasurable thing in collectible card worlds. I wish that these companies would take back a little bit on. I understand it. It is the way that our world works. But the idea of FOMO, and I said this kind of goes to the potential increase in value. But things like the Rudy promo, something that was available for a short amount of time, will have a lot of collectible value because you can't get it today. In order to get it today, you have to go to the secondary market. And there is this is Secret Lair, right? The Magic Gathering Secret Lair. There is an element to this that is a win. It brings eyeballs on the game. It brings eyeballs on the things. It's a win for collectors. They get to say, I was here on that day when this thing was available. That FOMO element. There's a nuance to that some people like and some people don't like. I, for one, wish the nuance was a little bit longer on some of those things, but that's just my opinion. It doesn't change the fact of the matter that FOMO is something that guides, or I guess availability or scheduled availability is what guides is something or is something not collectible. If something is available all the time, this is an argument for why they should make unlimited out of print, because it gives players something to collect and whatever, because there's a window of time for it to go away. If it has that FOMO, that is another metric of which you can evaluate is something collectible or not. The last thing I want to talk about isn't connected to any of these. And again, you can leave a comment in the comment section if you think I've missed something out. But I would really love, in the article I was reading, in the Reddit post, somebody said this: I think collectibles work best generally when there's not a whole lot of them. I also prefer there to be some sort of cool reward for achieving them, even if it's just like a costume or thing. And this is something that I really hope that some of these newer card companies would do. So, Mike, James, if you're listening, here is an idea, free for you. If somebody posts a picture or whatever to social media that has a full collection of your set, you should have some sort of promo that you send to them to say, hey, congratulations, you collected a set. That's an amazing feat. And then people get a little cool promo that they get to show off or maybe has some value. I think it's a really cool way to encourage people to set collect and to give them some additional value and additional reasoning for why to collect things beyond your game. And don't go into the FOMO of this. Give people a year. Give people 1 year from the release of the cards to get the cards that they need. It gives some interest to the secondary market. It gives some interest to the first edition stuff. Give people a way or a reason to collect things. I know there's logistics behind that, but you're all smart companies and smart guys. You can figure out the logistics. It's a really cool way to give somebody a reward for collecting and believing and investing in your game, investing their time, their energy, and their collectible attitude into their game. So let me know what you think I missed in the comment section. Let me know what you think. We all have a finite amount of resources that we add to collectibles. These are the things I think that give the metrics for how we decide what to do. And if you're looking for a way to track your Metazoo or your Flesh and Blood collection to see did you accomplish it, head on over to patreon.com/KitchenTableTCG, where I do work very hard to put together a list and the updated values for those card games so that you can see, have I caught them all? Have I achieved the Pokemon dream of capturing all the things that we got instilled to us when we were kids and now all these other companies get to reap the reward of? Anyway, hope you're having a great day. Remember to be kind to the people around you.